seemed to, the pacing and everything seemed to work quite nicely. It's clear that you've obviously this morning you've taken in notes and formative points that Nigel wants you to work on, and I spotted that, and it was actually that's great because it means that I'm listening out for things like the word dilemma and how you go about using AE, and I can tell that which from the way you're wording things. My feeling is, and this obviously is a learning environment, so trying those things out is really important. So don't there's always a balance of when you actually invest in AE, when you do that acknowledged part of it, especially the acknowledged part and the emphasized part of it, because I think the energized bit is it just happens afterwards because it's part of the plan. But if you've done those first two bits, it works really well. So my note for those two bits is try not to do it, and I think, you know, I used the analogy of getting in the pool. Try not to do it from kind of leaning in and like, and what I mean by that is going, I can see, you know, it's like I can see this is upsetting you. It's perfectly fine, but it's almost like you can go slightly further with that, and it's not maybe the like in the previous one with my God, that sounds like you've been through a lot. Although the sentiment is bang on, it's finding that medium and that language on that side of it. And I think it because there's a point when if I'm the patient hearing that, it's like I can tell if someone's saying something for the sake of saying something a little bit. So you really invest in that acknowledgement of something, and that goes back to that mirroring and how Nigel was saying about, yeah, mirroring that language that's used. Because once you do that, the empathizing part is actually is like it's a roll off of that. You know, this is a lot going on for you. I can imagine this is going on for you. I'm really want to help you at that point. That's there's an ownership to that, I think, that works really well in AEE. And because you guys have been trying everything with the word dilemma and AE in general, and the active listening part of it, I think it's just pushing further and not feeling like you're saying something as a spectator, but actually getting into the pool a bit more of that. I hope that
Yeah,
made sense. Kind of rambled at that end of that, Nigel.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you've got to invest in it. You've got to believe in it. It has to be sincere, you know. Otherwise, it's just words like anything else. A round of applause for Ryan, please. Thank you so much.
Have a great
Okay.
break. Take guys.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so we
An
are going
afterthought, and
to.
also how you're signposting. I talked about that quite a lot at the beginning and throughout, actually. So rather than sensitive, or I'm going to ask you some sensitive questions or intimate questions, be specific about what you're going on to ask. I think about, you know, the terminology you use, such as what is it, social history, things like that. What does that mean to a patient? No one talked about a social prescriber today, but often that comes up, the social prescriber, as if I should know what that is, who that is. So make sure, you know, it's not jargon, but make sure, you know, you're thinking about the layman, and will they know what you're talking about there? So just keep language really simple. That leads me on to the second thing I was going to talk about, is language, keeping your language really nice and simple. You know, not overcomplicating, thinking about how your words will have an effect. You know, we were talking about the retinal detachment, that's going to be really alarming. Think about how you present that, how you talk about that. Not using too many alarming kind of phrases like you might go blind, for example. Think about how the language you use, how you use it. Similarly, in the teenage case, we think about our language there, keeping that nice and straightforward and simple, reflect the patient's language. So if I'm using sex, I wouldn't use intercourse as as a way of describing it, just say sex. Thinking about it, how a positive we can be, empowering your patients, you know, particularly in that teenage case, you know, that it's really great that you've come in to speak to us about that. And when you say those things, kind of mean them, just make sure they're connected to, you know, really feel those things and make sure that that's communicated. So yeah, they would be my big things, is signposting. Make sure you let the patient know where we're going. It's good for you in terms of structure and, you know, giving yourself almost a resting point before you ask your next set of questions. But it just, so we feel like we're in safe hands as the patient, that we know where we're going, so we're never kind of worried, I think, about what's coming up or what's going to be asked. So signposting and language, thinking about not overcomplicating, thinking about the the reactions that you might get based on what you're saying. and obviously reflecting patient's language, keeping it simple. I think I've said that before, but yeah, there'll be my top 10 things. And always listening, listen. There was a couple of listens I put in there, but on the whole that wasn't bad. But yeah, signposting and language for me. But good luck.
Oh, well, that said, I'm gonna. Emma's wearing her Christmas jumper, so I've got to put my Christmas hat on now. Okay, so a round of applause for Louise, and wishing you a fantastic Christmas with the kids and the family. And I will see you in the new year. Okay, so thank you very much. Right, so we are now going to debrief. What do you think you are going to be working on moving forwards?
So staying close to the patient's agenda. Once I've opened up the ICE, use that to take the rest of the history, and then commit to a diagnosis or a problem to then manage earlier on, so then I have the time to get through that a bit more coherently.
Yeah, so the first half is fine. I think we probably need to work on a slight adjustment of tone and reactivity in terms of the acknowledgement. Sometimes when you're processing, those come in quite a fair amount in the first half, but the first half is generally okay. What we need to work on really is that second half aspect of how you commit firstly to risk and feeling confident not to overthink something. I think the tendency is we've overthought perhaps a few of these cases and complicated it beyond what it needed to be. You know, if you're confident that a 15-year-old is not being coerced into sex and she's, you know, Gillick competent, then why not prescribe? You know, we're happy with that risk. If you recognize that a migraine, you know, is not typical and actually you thought cluster headache, then go in that direction. You know, so it's about staying close to the agenda and not overthinking it. But you know, February be safe, and obviously you're one of mine, so we will be working together. I you know, all of us as a group in January, just to recalibrate again at St Mary's, making sure that actually we're testing. But the first place to start would be to run through these cases in your study group, the ones that you've done today, and make sure that they're absolutely pitch perfect, basically.
Thank you.
Mina, what are you taking away from today?
So to utilize the 3 minutes and prep the case properly in the beginning, because that obviously has an effect as to how the consultation goes forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Really, really important. So this active listening also is very important. So we talked about, you know, cues being given, especially in an undifferentiated case of heartburn. I mean, it's called heartburn for a reason, isn't it? Because it mimics the heart. So, you know, just being really tuned into that aspect and not ignoring it when it's coming again. I thought the second case went very well for you, actually. You know, you were able to move forwards conversationally. But again, if someone's asking you about diazepam on a second or third occasion, it's very important not to say, we'll talk about that later. Just talk about it now. Just address the dilemma at hand. And then the third case around prescribing, again, this is about how you commit to risk. So just being absolutely tuned in to, you know, what the patient wants, priming the case so that we don't talk about things that have kind of already been talked about. She was on sertraline for depression. That should have been addressed earlier, used earlier in the context of that case to see how you move forwards. I mean, February is a reasonable time, but there needs to be change in your technique. There needs to be change in your strategy, you know, and specifically thinking about battle plans is going to be very, very important. So how you practice from here on in with your study group is going to be sentinel. If that's the case and you work smart, then February is realistic. But if we go back into bad technique, just chase the symptom and the diagnosis, then that's where the danger zone is going to be. Artie, what about you?
I think trying to get to like the management point a bit earlier, because both the second and third time I ran out of time. And also I think really with like the negotiating cases, like you say, using that dilemma phrase and trying to give them reasonable alternatives. Yeah,
so in both instances, I suppose, you know, the potential 2-week wait and the sick note, the patient's not expecting to hear what you want to tell them, which is, in the first case, an escalation of risk. In the second case, that I'm not going to give you a 3-month sick note. And I suppose the dilemma actually could have been used in both instances, which is, you know, if we looked at the second case, well, I guess the dilemma that we've got at the moment is it's not completely clear where this bleeding's coming from. And I think it's just important we keep an open mind. You know, it could be piles, but you know, would you be open to having some further investigations? And so how we commit to that sensitively is important. Now you were making that commitment with the sick note, actually saying, you know, going back to work, there's positive things, and it's just about using that lovely positive energy you have to best advantage rather than being caught up in the counter energy. So in both instances, if you think about it, you know, that guy got very shocked about hearing this is potentially cancer, and then you got caught up in that counter energy. And it's the same thing with the sick note, whereas actually what you want to do is counter that with positive energy and start thinking about what you can do to help. But yeah, February's going to be fine, and I think we'll work on those aspects in the study group. Joyce, what about you?
Well, I think working on my differentials, I think on the Meniere's that case, the dizziness, I didn't kind of go through differentials. So kind of thinking about that, and trying to use the phrase dilemma in my consultation.
It's not about differentials. It's about using the ICE to focus, because your working diagnosis was fine. I didn't need any other differentials, but what I needed you to do was ensure that you've used the patient's ICE to actually focus down firstly on the system that you're interested in. And it's not about differentials per se, but it's asking other questions to make sure you're not missing anything else, you know. So in someone who's coming in with, you know, specifically saying, I get dizzy when I stand up, and you know they've got hypertension, then you need to be using those notes, don't you? You need to be case priming. So we saw that in the first case with your Crohn's disease. It's clear you're a very, very nice and very warm person, but don't be scared to say no, and understand why you're saying no. You know, there needs to be clarity around that. So yeah, March is a safe sitting for you. Absolutely, very safe. It's good you've come early. I always say come early, come as early as you can, so that you can work in the right way. But it is about then taking these messages away and challenging each other. And, you know, hopefully you can, maybe I'm going to let you think about setting up a virtual study group, because I think it's sometimes good to study with people outside of your scheme, especially people who've come through this course. And there's a lot of observers here. So think about this, because, you know, you may just want to set something up through WhatsApp and just do these cases again. Don't do anything different until the case is right, you know. And then when you have access to the online consults, you can watch the case and play it out again. You don't need a huge bank of cases to get good at consultation strategy. It's the same thing all over again. Negotiation skills, management of risk. Doesn't matter what comes in through the door. It's the same theme. But well done. Emma, what about you?
I think addressing the dilemma and presenting it clearly, nice and early,
Yeah.
and then also just ensuring I fully explore the history,
Yes.
so I don't miss anything.
Yeah, it's a very, very strong day for you, actually. I mean, you passed all your cases today, which is quite rare on this course, but you've done very, very well. Again, just give yourself more time. You know, if you know that this is going to be a negotiation station, put it out there, showcase your skills earlier rather than later. If you do it earlier, then you'll have more time to get further into the clinical management section, which is where the weighting of the marks are going to be. But that was very good. And then Ria, what about you? What are you taking away from today? Oh, you're muted.
So I think similar, looking at the dilemma and getting from that point A to point B. So, you know, addressing the dilemma, but how am I going to get over that dilemma with the patient to get like neutral ground? Yes.
And getting to point B is the key. So reactive risk management, knowing that our actions will have reactions, knowing that sometimes we have to say no to certain things, but what is it that we can do to offer? But yeah, no, a good day for you today. And, you know, I think you're going to be absolutely fine for February. We've got more Ealing people that will be coming through very shortly. So again, it's about identifying people who are at the same wavelength, you know, so that you can challenge each other. Well, we all know that what you're taking away today is your license to practice. You're definitely not going to lose that today, are you? So you can be safe in the knowledge that no one's going to take away your GMC license to practice. Brilliant. Okay, so